My wife, the sex worker. My ex and I met in college. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. She always had a crowd of guys following her around. I had some classes with her over the 4 years, but I never pursued her because, well, all the other guys. One day after class, she asked if I would study with her, and the rest is history. So we married, starting our careers in the same industry, different companies, a male-dominated industry. I found immediate success while she struggled. She changed jobs in the first year. She continued to struggle. In the third year, she became pregnant with our first son. She worked through the pregnancy. A few weeks after giving birth, in a routine physical, her doctor asked to do a biopsy of her cervix. The results came back as precancerous cells were found. The doctor advised if we wanted more children to do it as quick as possible as this will progress, and a hysterectomy will be needed eventually. So when she was up to it, she became pregnant again. She gave birth again to a boy within a year of each other. Afterward, more tests were done and different doctors advised to do the procedure now as we should not wait. With 2 babies, still infants, she had her procedure done. She was heartbroken that she was done having children as we had wanted a large family. She poured herself into being a great mother. And she is. She became a Sam. She took care of everything at home. Meanwhile, my career was moving along. I was offered a position with another company with a large salary bump. Life is good. When the boys went off to school, she volunteered at school and was a fixture there. I should mention that we had close friends we went to school with, A and B. We saw each other often. They started their family about the time we did. They have 1 son. The families went on vacations together. Dinner. Outings, we were best of friends. After the son was born, the mother went back to work and is very successful. B had a good job also until about 2001, where his job was eliminated. He struggled to find work in his field as the economy back then really affected his field. So the decision was he would be a SHD while looking for work where we lived, as they did not want to move. The X and B did things together with kids. When the kids were all in school, they still hung out. You can now guess they had an affair. This story I know is long, but not over. After about a year of this, hot sex in the AM, B asked X if she and I had ever talked about a threesome. It was all fantasy talk with us, as we were still having a great, if not slowing down, sexual relationship. B had a friend he wanted to bring into the bedroom with them. The X agreed. The day came, and this guy, C, came over to B's house. He took his suit off as X, and B got warmed up. So they had their threesome. Afterward, the guy told them that he usually had to pay for sex. So he left a couple $100 bills and asked X if he could have a 1-1 with X. She told him she needed to think about that, and B would get back to him. Eventually, C recommended someone else, and a business was born. Eventually, B was re-employed and had to leave X on her own. She used a different cell phone. She rented out a storage unit and made it her closet, office. She used the money to buy outfits her clientele requested. She even bought a car. She did not want her minivan spotted at a hotel. The guys had to pay for a room at a nice hotel. She kept the car at the storage unit. Everything was in cash. She never brought the money into our lives that I know of. Though we would send the kids to different day camps during summer, she claimed she tightened up our budget to pay for it. She only worked during school hours. She always picked the boys up at school. On a few rare occasions, B would pick them up and keep them until she got home. Our home life never suffered. I admit I was working a ton and moving up the ladder. The weekends were our family time. Sex was generally on the weekends, I thought. Because of my work life, this worked best. Most nights we would cuddle on the couch watching TV. Almost done, 2016 comes along. We have 1 son in college, the other a senior in HS. I get a call from BX, is in the hospital. He was vague but said she is hurt bad. I rush to the hospital. My wife is hooked to a bunch of machines. They have already cleaned her up and taken her for x-rays. She has a broken jaw, broken nose, fractured orbital bone, possible concussion. She will make it but will be a long road ahead. A police officer was finishing up and left. I of course want to know what happened. She was crying, talking gibberish through her sobs and pain meds. A nurse said I should let her rest. They were moving her to a room soon. She handed me a bag with her clothes. I looked in and asked if these were hers, because she never wears heels and the dress was unfamiliar. The nurse said this is what they brought from the hotel room. So they pushed me out of the room. I called my sons to let them know. Later that night, when the fog of the drugs were wearing off, I got some of the story. She drifted off again. I had my youngest son sit in with her, and I called B. Why did he call me? How did he know before me? What's going on? So B came clean about what my wife was up to, leaving out the affair and his involvement. I was devastated. We eventually get her home after surgery on her jaw. The nose would wait. She convalesced at home. As she got stronger, I got the whole story. I called A and told of the affair and B as a pimp. She threw B out. As she got on her feet, I told her we were done. I asked her to move out. She moved in with B. I got the divorce rolling. I am sitting here 5 years divorced. I still love her. It is as if she had died. The grief is unbearable. My boys know what she did. I have not spoken to her since she left.
Cheated on while pregnant. At 27 years old, I never imagined that my life would turn upside down so quickly. I was 6 months pregnant when I discovered the first cracks in our seemingly perfect relationship. My ex-fiancé, a 26-year-old man I thought I could trust with everything, betrayed me in the worst possible way. I had been working as a restaurant manager, and life had its own rhythm until that fateful moment. I decided to take a week off from work to fly to Europe, place where I grew up, to see my family for the first time since I found out I was expecting. Being away from home during such a delicate time felt both comforting and necessary, as I needed to be around people who knew me well and could offer real support. The week in Europe gave me a temporary escape from my worries, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited when I returned home. As soon as I stepped back into my apartment, I immediately noticed something was off. There, in my shower, lay a facial scrub that wasn't mine. I remember the shock and confusion that washed over me as my heart started pounding. I couldn't understand how something that didn't belong to me ended up in a place that was meant to be my sanctuary. I confronted him as soon as possible. I asked, "What is this doing here? Whose is it?" Instead of offering a sincere explanation, he responded with a cold, dismissive lie. He said something along the lines of, "I don't know how it got here, maybe it's yours." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. At that moment, my mind raced with painful memories and doubts, and I couldn't hold back my tears. I ended up crying all day, even at work, feeling utterly betrayed and humiliated. That evening, hoping for some clarity, I asked him again for an explanation. Instead of a simple answer, he reacted by yelling, blaming me for not trusting him. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, heavily pregnant and emotionally fragile, while he tried to shift the blame on me. A mix of anger and sadness. I knew deep down that I deserved better than this, and that something was terribly wrong with the way he was handling the situation. As the days went by, I made the conscious decision to stop dwelling on the betrayal and to focus on my pregnancy. I accepted that arguing with him wouldn't change the reality of what had happened. I knew he had cheated, even though he never openly admitted it. I was simply caught in a battle of wills with someone who refused to acknowledge his wrongdoing. Just 1 month after my baby was born, life threw another curveball at me. I was involved in a car accident. Thankfully, I wasn't injured, but my car was completely totaled. At that moment, I faced a huge decision. Should I invest thousands of dollars in a new car, or use this event as a turning point in my life? The accident made me realize that buying a new car was more than just a financial commitment. It symbolized a commitment to staying in the United States and moving forward with my life. A week later, after much thought and with a clear mind, I sat him down for one final conversation. I told him that I wasn't going to spend thousands on a vehicle if he couldn't admit to his infidelity. I said, "I'd much rather sell everything I have and leave." His reaction was immediate. I could see the shock in his eyes, and for a moment, he seemed to think that I would let everything go. But then, under the pressure of my determination and the gravity of our situation, he finally admitted that he had cheated on me. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was where it happened. He had chosen our home, a place that was supposed to be safe and filled with trust, to be the scene of his indiscretion. I remembered the physical pain and complications I experienced during my pregnancy. My fragile cervix, the heavy bleeding during intercourse, the multiple trips to the emergency room, and the constant nausea that made every day a struggle. Even with all these hardships, I had still tried to be close to him, even if it meant sacrificing my own well-being. 3 months after that difficult conversation, I made the decision to fly back to Europe. I left behind a relationship that was no longer sustainable and chose a future where my son and I could rebuild our lives free from the shadow of betrayal. I became a happy single mother, proud of the courage it took to leave someone who had broken my trust when I needed him the most. Despite him being the father of my child, I realized that my self-respect and well-being were far more important. Leaving him wasn't just about escaping a painful chapter. It was about reclaiming my life. I learned that sometimes the most important decision is knowing when to let go of someone who isn't willing to stand by you during your darkest moments. And even though the past will always be a part of my story, it has also paved the way for a brighter future for me and my son.
My wife cheated on me with her gym partner. Now she's pregnant, and I have no idea if the baby is mine or his. I never thought my life would turn into something resembling a daytime soap opera. Once, I admired her for her sophistication and elegance. I used to see her as a woman of grace and class, someone who lit up every room she entered. But now, I hardly recognize the person I married. Over time, our shared dreams faded, and our home turned into a battleground of emotions and secrets. It all began when I received a shocking text one morning. The message confirmed my worst fears. She was moving in with her gym buddy. This wasn't just a friend. He was the man she had been having an affair with for a while. To make matters even more complicated, she announced that she was pregnant. I was left reeling, unable to determine whether the baby was his or mine. Instead of taking the sensible step of arranging a paternity test, she brushed off the idea, saying that the thought of having her blood drawn was too embarrassing. I couldn't understand how she could be so careless about such an important matter. For the past week, she had been reaching out to me nonstop. Her phone buzzed with message each one, a plea for me to come back and fix what was broken. She would drop hints and gentle suggestions, trying to lure me back into a life we once shared. But ever since I learned about her affair, I have kept my distance. Although we still live under the same roof, our lives have become two separate islands. I barely speak to her now, and when our paths cross, our conversations are short and filled with tension. Even with all this pain and betrayal, a part of me still cares for her. I remember the woman I loved, and it hurts to see her unravel into someone so unpredictable. I worry about her, even though I know that she has chosen a path filled with mistakes. My lawyer is already informed, and is preparing for what I know will be a messy legal battle. The thought of dividing our lives, our home, and possibly even a child is overwhelming. I told her plainly that moving out wasn't a wise decision, especially when things were already so unstable. I suggested she get legal advice before making any rash moves, but my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. It was as if she had already decided on her own path and was not willing to listen to reason. I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for her, wondering why she couldn't see that she might be better off alone, rather than tied to someone who clearly wasn't right for her. In the midst of this chaos, I couldn't stop thinking about the man she had chosen. I was curious, almost desperately so, about his role in all of this. I asked her if he was aware of the pregnancy and what exactly he had been told. Her answer was as calm and indifferent as she could make it. He knew about the pregnancy, and in his eyes, it didn't matter whether the baby was mine or his. All he cared about was his love for her. It struck me as odd. Why would a single man choose to get involved with a married, pregnant woman when he had so many other options? In my mind, his choice was baffling. Despite everything, I couldn't help but think that, in his own way, he had a certain charm about him. He had a stable job, his own home, and seemed to be in control of his life. Yet, his involvement in our tangled mess made him part of the problem. I often sit alone and wonder what has led us to this point. How did everything we built together collapse so completely? It feels as though our life has been hijacked by events that are too surreal to believe. I'm left questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and loyalty. I struggle with a deep inner conflict. In one hand, I feel betrayed and hurt by her actions, and on the other, I find myself still caring about her well-being. The emotional roller coaster has left me both angry and sorrowful. The situation is complicated further by the thought of a child who might be caught in the middle of this chaos. If the baby turns out to be mine, what does that mean for our future? Will I be forced to share my life, my home, and even my child with a woman who now lives so differently from the one I once loved? These questions haunt me day and night. I can't shake the feeling of dread that comes with the uncertainty of what the future holds. I often lie awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine a way out of this nightmare. Every option seems to lead to more heartache. In this new reality, the simple things in life have lost their meaning. The home that was once filled with laughter and shared dreams now echoes with silence and coldness. Every room reminds me of happier times that now seem like a distant memory. My heart aches for the past, even as I recognize that the future holds only more complications and pain. Looking back, I wonder if there was a moment when we could have saved what we once had. Perhaps if we had been more honest with each other, if we had addressed the small cracks before they turned into huge fissures, things might have turned out differently. But now, every attempt at reconciliation feels futile. The damage is done, and I find myself trapped in a life that is as messy as it is unpredictable. I continue to navigate through this complicated web of emotions and decisions, unsure of what the next day will bring. I remain cautious and reserved, even as a part of me yearns for a return to simpler times. My lawyer advises me on the legal steps I need to take, and I try to follow his guidance, even though my heart is not in it. The future seems to be shrouded in uncertainty, and every decision I make carries the weight of potential regret. In the end, I am left with a mix of resignation and lingering resignation that things have come to this, and hope that maybe, somehow, I can find a way to rebuild my life after all the chaos. It is a journey I never wanted to take, and yet it seems inevitable. As I watch her leave to join her new partner, I can't help but feel a deep sense of loss for the life we once shared, a life that now belongs only to the memories of a love that has long since faded away.
This morning I saw my boyfriend in bed with a mutual friend. As the title says, I found my boyfriend in bed with a friend of ours this morning, and I am at a loss right now. This morning, I woke up around 6 a.m. to use the bathroom and noticed my boyfriend wasn't in bed. He wasn't in the bathroom either, and his car was gone. So I checked his iCloud and found him down the road at a mutual friend's house. At 6 a.m., I was going to call him but decided to check his Facebook first. That's when I saw a message from him to her saying, "I wish you had no pants on more often." There was more to the message, but I couldn't recall it because blind rage took over, and I rushed out of the house down the road. Apparently, he sent the message while he was in her bathroom taking a shit. Her house was unlocked, so I let myself in and followed their voices up to her room, where I saw him sitting on her bed playing on his phone in boxers and a t-shirt, and her lying in bed completely naked, literally naked. Needless to say, I completely lost it. Long story short, things almost turned physical when he tried to rush through his explanations filled with lies. I ended up throwing her bong at him, which smashed a light and broke. After I ranted for a few minutes with him, still refusing to tell me the truth, she broke down crying and admitted that they had slept together a few times, since May. 4 times. She said he had been trying for a while before that. She finally caved in right before her dad died in May, and that if she said no now, he would be short and dismissive with her because he wouldn't get what he wanted. I hate talking about people's appearances, but she's around 450 pounds and has very low self-esteem, despite being very pretty, very sweet, and very funny. She's like a 40-year-old cat lady. It's very sad, honestly, and he took advantage because he knew she would eventually cave in. I genuinely feel bad for her, even though I know I shouldn't. She has known us for 3 years and has been my shoulder to cry on over him cheating so many times. Now I am at a loss. He has cheated on me a lot throughout our 7-year relationship. In the past, I used to think that if I told everyone, he'd be embarrassed and stop doing it, but I know that's not the case. The time he cheated on me was in May 2023, and I found out in August 2023. We fought a lot and took a small break, during which I told him that the next time I would leave him for good. I really thought he took me seriously because he and I have been doing so well since then. It's like he's been a whole new person happier. more energized, sweeter, and more attentive to both me and my daughter, 8 years old. He even went Mother's Day shopping with her for the first time in our relationship, and they surprised me. It was wonderful. But then I found out that this had been going on for a while now, since sometime in May, and now I'm left so confused. I believe everything she said, but I'm just dumbfounded. We were doing so well. He's been trying to be better, and I've been trying to be better. Now, I'm just lost. A huge part of me wants him to go, while another huge part wants him to stay. My daughter is going to be devastated if he leaves. He is the only father she's ever really known. I want to puke, scream, and cry. I don't know what to do. Fuck, man. I'm sorry.